Welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Founded in 1893, Lansdowne in eastern Delaware County was initially developed as a streetcar suburb of Philadelphia. People traveled the 6-mile journey from the city by rail to relax in the borough's Victorian homes, many of which have been preserved as reminders of the borough's bygone halcyon days. One of Lansdowne's main attractions was the Lansdowne Theater, a magnificent structure built in the Spanish Revival style of the 1920s. The theater was renowned for its beautiful interior. Lansdowne Borough has close to 100 historic buildings listed on the National Register of Historic Places, including the Lansdowne Theater, one of the few Philadelphia area theaters that dates back to the Hollywood movie glamour era of the roaring 1920s. The 250,000 1358th Street movie theater opened on June 1, 1927, just before the advent of the talkies. The opening night feature was the silent film Knockout Riley, starring Richard Dix, who incidentally was one of my father's favorite Western movie stars. Adding to the excitement of the day was the appearance of Miss Lansdowne, who flew over the theater in a biplane, dropping roses to the audience. Films were shown Monday through Saturday. Tickets ranged from 15 cents to 35 cents. For more than a half-century, the Lansdowne Theater thrived as one of the premier venues for movies and live stage performances before changing technologies and an electrical fire forced its doors to close in 1987. Sadly, it sat empty for nearly 40 years. In July 2023, after years of planning and raising capital needed to restore the theater to its former glory, the nonprofit Historic Lansdowne Theater Corporation began a $20 million restoration project under the direction of Matt Schultz. 2 years later, on August 22, 2025, largely due to the hard work and dedication of Matt, the Revived Lansdowne Theater reopened with a sold-out live performance. My guest today, Matt Schultz, Executive Director of the Historic Lansdowne Theater Corporation, is here to tell us how he pulled off this Herculean project and what the future of the Revived Lansdowne Theater looks like. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to have you here. I'm a little raspy because allergies are driving me crazy. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I followed this a little bit. I don't know how you did it, particularly because you were a staff of one who had to deal with all of the architects, the state, county, local, I don't know what else, to get various permits, not to mention raising $20 million.
I certainly can't take credit for doing it all. I mean, why not? I orchestrated it, but we had over 1,400 people who donated to the project. Mm-hmm. We got support from the federal, state, county, and local levels to fund the project. We had over 150 tradespeople work on the project. We had a design team of about 20 people. And there's just so many people involved in this project that had pieces of it. So the credit certainly should not fall to me. And we had a great board of directors who hung in there for 15 years. We have 3 board members who were there from before day one, who hung in there till opening day.
You must have had some pretty heavy hitters to come up with $20 million. But did you also have a large number of individual donors, 25, 50, 100?
We did. Of all the donors that we had in excess of 1,000 individual donors who made gifts of anywhere from $50 to, I think probably our highest individual gift was maybe 25 or 30,000. The bulk of our money really came through government. They saw the value from the historic preservation perspective, but maybe more importantly from economic development and community development. And to a person, I mean, it's unusual for a project to run federal through local, to have that support, but to a person, our state senator, Tim Carney, our state rep, Gina Curry, our U.S. representative, Mary Gay Scanlon, they were 100% behind us. And and I should point out Delaware County Council, especially Monica Phillips, who's the chairperson, and Elaine Schaefer, who was a member, really grasped onto this project and helped to push it forward. I mean, it was like the Eagles doing the tush push with me. I mean, people, they saw the value of it and just stepped forward. and they wanted to be a part of it, and we got it done.
Talk about that, the value, certainly the economic value for the business district in that area. But there are other aspects of the value.
Sure. I think even at its worst, in its worst condition, you could walk into the Lansdowne and feel transformed. It still, even though it was really rough, it still looked like 1927 inside the building. So that gave us a way to think about the design of the building and to not, we had to change it slightly, but when you go in today, it looks like it looked in 1927. And hopefully
the pictures are just unbelievable.
Yeah, and I hope that people feel that. They feel it transformed. But maybe even on the exterior of the building, we restored it too. So you walk up, we now have, we've put the terracotta roof back on the main front roof, and the marquees, restored the whole thing. But the other reasons that we did it, economic development, we already have a new restaurant that's opened up because of the theater across the street that's packed every night. The second's going to open within the next month. And the first apartment building to be built in Lansdowne since the early 60s is going to break ground next spring. The developer is excited about the theater, decided to build the apartment house because he sees it as an amenity to attract tenants to the building. So we've got that piece. The other thing is we wanted to make the arts accessible to people in the inner ring suburbs, because there's some people that maybe just don't want to go into Philadelphia.
But in recent years, Lansdowne has become an art center, hasn't it?
True. Lansdowne as a whole has really embraced the arts. Lansdowne has its own folk club, which is great, has its own symphony. And then there are a number of opportunities in town to work in its studios run by the Lansdowne Economic Development Corporation. So you can take lessons in graphic arts or pottery or whatever. So it's really become an active, it's tried to reinvent itself through the arts.
But interestingly, and again, this goes back at least a few years, it was the younger generation who came into Lansdowne and revived it. Is that true?
I would agree. I mean, there's some leftovers like myself, who've been there since 1968. But yeah, there's been a lot of younger people. Some fresh ideas have come in and really reinvigorated the community. So it's an exciting, fun place that probably to people who were here 15 years ago, maybe it's not recognizable anymore. But I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
Let's go back a little bit to you. You were born in Lansdowne.
Actually, I was not born in Lansdowne. I was born in Drexel Hill. My family moved to Ridley, and my parents in 1968 were forced to sell their house because the Blue Route was going to come through our living room.
It's finally materialized.
Yeah, so my family, and it was a lucky day for me, and a lucky day for my family, because we moved from Ridley, we moved to Lansdowne, and had a wonderful experience in Lansdowne, and that's why I'm still there. My mom taught locally. My mom taught in a local school district. I walked to school every day. It was really, my brothers and I, we had a wonderful time there.
And you went to Temple?
I went to Temple University for Urban Studies.
For Urban Studies, which kind of is related to what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's a combination of urban planning, geography, studying demographics, political science. So yes, you're right. All of that stuff I learned at Temple played a role.
And this was not your first rodeo. You've been involved in some major projects in preservation projects in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I actually was on the team that put together the Avenue of the Arts on North and South Broad Street, and I was the unofficial in-house preservation consultant on those projects. So I got to do that. I ran the Philadelphia Society for the Preservation of Landmarks, which was a series of house museums. And then my first job out of college, I started an architectural salvage business with the support of the Pew Charitable Trusts. And we did, in addition to architecturally salvaging things and making them available for reuse, we provided educational program for people who had historic buildings. So my career largely has been in the preservation urban setting. I did spend 5 years at Temple University as an administrator there, but you're right. Most of it's been preservation.
Yeah. What induced you to take on this impossible project? Because I'm sure there were people in the community, friends and others, who said, that's a big, ugly building. How are you going to bring life back? And how?
Well, I don't think anyone ever said it was an ugly building.
How are you going to raise $20 million?
I don't think anyone ever said it was an ugly building. They said it was a building in need of a lot of care. I had, in addition to working with preservation in the city professionally, in my after hours, I had volunteered to take on some preservation projects in Lansdowne. Lansdowne's Frank Furness designed station burned at one point, and I rallied the community to get SEPTA to restore that station. Lansdowne has today a 400-year-old sycamore tree that was going to be cut down, so I rallied people to save that. I started a campaign to create an historic district in Lansdowne that now has 80 residences in it. And then I led a campaign to restore the Lansdowne World War and Lansdowne World War II Memorial. And people kept, whenever I'd finish this project, they wanted to know what the next project is.
Yeah.
And people would come and say, why don't you do the movie theater? And it scared me because there's not, there had never been a project of this scale done in the community. And it was a scary, bumpy ride. But I saw the value not only of preserving the building, but what it could do in terms of economic development and community development. And in survey after survey, residents of the community said that the restoration and reopening the theater as a place of public entertainment was a very high priority. So we knew that the public was going to embrace it. And I was in bed one night, got a phone call from my then state representative, Nicholas McCosey, who said, Matt, I can get you $1 million. Do you want to do the theater? And I just sort of said, yeah, well, let's do that. And I called him the next morning. I said, did you call last night and offer me $1 million to do the Lansdowne Theater? And he said, yes. Do you have people call you and offer you $1 million in the middle of the night? So we were able to get support from the Commonwealth to purchase the building, to stabilize it and begin to envision its next life. And that's what we did.
So you just brought back some memories. I knew Nick McCosey when he was on the Upper Darby board.
Nick was a unique politician who was just a wonderful, wonderful man.
The hardest part, you said, was raising the money, $20 million. How? Begging? A lot of begging?
A lot of begging. Lansdowne does not have, let's call it a lot of philanthropic interests. There's not a lot of people focused on Eastern Delaware County or Lansdowne. So we realized that we had to go a different route. So we started looking to government and to some smaller foundations. So what we would do while we were raising money to do architectural design and to do it in the typical construction process, we would bite off smaller projects. For example, the first project we did was to restore the marquee because the marquee was falling off the building. So we were able to get a block grant, a community development block grant from Delaware County Council to do that. So we would do that project, and then we did a whole series of projects like that. They were all done on the exterior of the building so that the public could see there was motion. Because there had been an effort before us to restore the theater that never really took off. So there was a lot of, are they really going to do this? Yeah. So we would take those smaller projects, do them, and really sell it to people. You know, the marquee is going to be done. We're doing the windows. We're redoing the front facade. You know, we're doing this, we're doing that. So it was to show progress in finite bites and then all at the same time while building credibility with other elected officials and other funders. Because I think it was at the beginning, because I see this a lot, because I get calls all the time from people who want to do theaters. And it's like Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney, let's put on a show. And I think that funders get that. So we had to demonstrate to the funders that this wasn't that. Yeah. This was looking at it as from the perspective of a real estate development and what it was going to do for the community. The engine was doing the shows at the end of the process. But we weren't in show business. So what we did was we went out and got a tenant, BRE Presents, who's the region's leading independent concert promoter, and we've leased the building to them. So we're always going to own it as the landlord. But we were not about putting on the shows. We were about restoring the building and bringing the benefit to the community.
Yeah. As you know, we are sitting across the street, across Route 30 from the Anthony Wayne, which is just beginning the process of restoration. And the number is about $20 million. And I interviewed Todd Scott, great guy, a lot of enthusiasm. But their intention is to make it an entertainment center, as with you, movies, live performances, but also special programs for kids, what did he call it, a speakeasy in the basement. I mean, a lot of activity all the time for the community. The intention of those who are responsible for it, the movies and live performances.
We're doing concerts. We're doing only live concerts. We're not doing movies. It's possible that someone could come in and, in essence, sublease the building for a night and bring in a movie screen and a projector. You could do that there. But our tenant is a concert promoter. So he's doing concerts there. So, and what that allowed us to do, which was really critical, was doing the concerts allowed us to keep the auditorium intact with its grand chandelier and all the lighting fixtures. Had we gone a different route, we would have had to chop up the space, which we didn't, because as I mentioned before, even when it was rough, it looked like 1927. Yeah. So that's so rare. That's so rare. So we didn't want to destroy that space. So we had to find something that was going to allow us to keep that space intact.
Right. I don't know what kind of concerts you're talking about, but what's going through my mind is concerts can be awfully hard on a building. On the seating and so on.
No, we chose very carefully our tenant, and BRE Presents has a great reputation for doing concerts. They've been in business for, I think, 25, almost 30 years. They've been doing shows at the Keswick up in Glenside, and at the Man, and at the Scottish Rite in Collingswood, and it's up and down the Eastern Seaboard. So we felt confident with who they were going to bring in that they're not going to tear the building apart. I think you go in, and I think given when we opened on August 22nd, the level of wow when people walked in, I think there's always outliers, but I don't think people are going to come in and rip the building apart.
Why wouldn't you have considered theatrical productions like the Media Theater, which, as you know better than I, is very, very popular?
Yeah. The reason that we didn't do that, well, one, we had a tenant in place. We had the tenant in place came to us, so it made sense to do that. But the theater is now 1,280 seats, which for legitimate theater in the Philadelphia area is a big space. I mean, the leading theater companies downtown, if they could get 1,280 people, would be thrilled. Yeah. So for us to get them at the Lansdowne was not realistic. The Media, I believe, is under 1,000 seats, so that's why they can do it. We didn't have fly space, so we didn't. So do you know what fly space? We didn't have fly space, so we didn't want to do that. And then we wanted to make sure that what was presented in the theater would attract people from throughout the region. That it would not only serve the local community, but would serve the whole region. Right. Because you're trying to fill, the name of the game is filling this 1,280 seats every night. So your market needs to be pretty broad. It can't be narrowly focused on local theater or, it's a challenge. I mean, we did look at that. We actually did look at dividing the space. I never wanted to do it, but we did look at it and decided not to do it, that it would destroy the building and we would not achieve our goal. We think that given the economic impact we've already seen with the new restaurant and the apartment building, we're already beginning to see the benefit to the community and the jobs that have been created at the theater, in these restaurants, and the 150 plus jobs we created for tradespeople during the project.
The first performance was last August.
It was August 22nd that just passed. It was Chaz Palminteri performed A Bronx Tale. It was the movie, but it was his autobiography, and it was great. I mean, that night, I couldn't believe it. First of all, I had nothing to do that night because I'm just the landlord at this point, so I actually got to sit and enjoy a show there. Usually, it was us putting on some kind of event. I'm running around, but it was just wonderful just to sit there and just to see the space. And they turned the lights down. They just had the stage lights on, and I looked up on the ceiling, and all the gold leaf, because we've recreated all the painting on the ceiling. The gold, all you could see was gold leaf. You couldn't see the rest of it, and it was just magical. And people were just so happy to be there.
Matt, I've seen pictures. I've not been in the theater since it's been restored, but the pictures are absolutely beautiful. How much of the theater as it stands now, the Revived Theater, is original? I've read about the draperies that had been restored, the original draperies, the curtain and so on. How much of that is original?
So it's a combination of restoration and recreation. So there were things like the stage curtain you're talking about. The stage curtain that we had was original to the building, and it was not in good shape. So we had to take that down, and it had been embroidered. Their geometric figures had been embroidered on it back in 27. So the rigging company that also made the curtain had in previous years worked with the theater decorator, and they came up with the idea of making a stencil of the original embroidery and painting it onto the stage curtain. And I was a little bit dubious at the beginning, but when I saw it in place, I almost cried. You cannot tell from the audience that it's not the original curtain. It's spectacular. There's two balconies on either side of the space, which originally held musical instruments that tied into the theater organ at the beginning. There are curtains, there's tapestries that are there. I went up and actually took them down myself, and when I took them down, I was covered in soot from head to toe. But we took them down, cleaned them, mended them, put a backing on them, and put them back up. So that's a restoration. Much of the plaster in the space had to be restored. The seating, we were lucky enough that the company that, Irwin Seating, out of Indiana, they bought up the company that made the seats in 1927. So they had the end caps with the metal part of the seats. So they recreated that. So we used original photos from 1927 to recreate that interior. I think we've done a great job in blending recreated items with items that were restored.
Was it difficult to find the artisans you needed for some of your...
No, not really, because I had spent a lot of time in the preservation world. The really specialized trades, I had leads into those communities. And then if we got stuck, then I would talk to those folks who, Evergreen Architectural Arts that did all the painting and decorated the space. They've done something like 500 theaters. So they know who's around and what you need. So I think they recommended the curtain company and the rigging company. And so just being in that world, there's probably, people say you can't get that work done anymore. That work can be really expensive, but you can get it done. I mean, we had a lot of, like I mentioned before, a lot of plaster damage. So there were three-dimensional objects in the room that needed to be recreated. But we found a very talented group of plasterers who came in, did molds of items in the building and reproduced it. And unless I told you which were reproduced, you would have no idea.
A project like this, I guess, there's got to be some momentum at some point. You can feel it moving. But there must have also been times when you sat back and said, this is too big, too high. I can't do it. Were there moments like that? And how did you break through?
It was definitely a roller coaster. There were highs and lows, and sometimes they all came in the same day. But I think I always thought that it could be done. We just needed to line up the Rubik's Cube in the right way. And we were finally able to bring together the right team of consultants, the right team of elected officials who were going to support us, the right team of people in the general public, and then the right tradespeople. So it just took a while for everything to gel, and to people to really believe, because nobody wants to be the first funder on a project. Nobody wants to do that. So that first donor is always the hardest. But when you can show that you're serious and that you're going to see this through to the end, one donor who actually he's not a donor, it was a prospect who said, I had to just make a grant to you for you hanging in there for so long. And I think this was probably in the 12th year of trying to raise money for the project. And he never did. I didn't want that kind of gift. I wanted him to make a gift to us because he believed in the vision, and he was just trying to acknowledge me.
You mentioned you're getting a lot of calls about other theaters. Is this a trend, bringing back old theaters? And for what purpose? I think concerts, movies?
Yeah, I think there's been, over the last 20, 25 years, there's been a concerted effort across the country to recognize these historic theaters and to bring them back. So maybe not in the Philadelphia region, though there are some outliers that, like the theater in the Phoenixville and the Bryn Mawr and the county.
And the Wayne.
And the Wayne. So it's always been there, but I think people are realizing what those theaters can bring to the community. It's not just doing this monolithic building that's not going to impact the community. And funders are always looking to, okay, I'm going to give you money to do the theater, but how's it going to impact people's lives?
Yes.
So I think it's becoming more commonplace there. But what I have learned that I know frustrates people when they call me is I say, each building is unique, each community is unique. I can tell you what we did in Lansdowne, but that you may not need to reproduce it where you are. You may not be able to produce it. You may have to go a different direction. And I think that was one of the most important lessons that I learned. That there is some repetition or some, but not very often.
All the other examples you mentioned were towns rather than big cities, urban areas. Is that part of the trend? The revival is in smaller towns, communities, rather than center city?
Well, I'll give you the example of Lansdowne. I mean, one of the reasons, or actually there are two reasons why the Lansdowne was never demolished. One of them was that people in the community were watching out for the building and didn't want it torn down. The other thing is there's not the pressure from the real estate market to clear the land, where you see things like the Boyd movie theater. Was there higher and better use for the Boyd? And that's what center cities, if you're trying to restore a theater in a center city, they're facing that obstacle. And that's a hard obstacle to overcome. But that was not true of Lansdowne, and I suspect it was not true of the Bryn Mawr or the Anthony Wayne
I don't believe so. In the case of the Anthony Wayne, I know the community was pleading with the owner, find something, do something, restore it. In this community, as I'm sure in Lansdowne, a lot of people who remember when they were kids going to the Anthony Wayne Theater, and they wanted to take their kids and grandkids.
Well, it's great. That nostalgia,
generational continuity.
Yeah, and nostalgia is great. I mean, that's who we start. When we started our project, we reached out to people in the community and sort of played on their nostalgia for the building. But at the end of the day, you've got to find something that's financially viable for everyone involved, and that can be a challenge.
You're an author?
I am an author.
You've written some books about Lansdowne. But what about Lansdowne? Some aspect of its history.
I did a book for part of the Arcadia series, which people are probably familiar with. Their photo books. It's called Views of Lansdowne, and I've done it as a tour. So you pick up the book and you can walk down the street and see this building and hear stories about it. And I think people are always surprised when they hear who came out of Lansdowne, how it was formed. I tried to talk about Lansdowne in the bigger picture, in the world and what it did. And I think people have enjoyed that book. I also did a book, actually co-authored a book called Lansdowne, the World Wars, where it was done as part of a project to restore the Lansdowne World War Monument and Lansdowne World War II Memorial. I spent a summer at the Free Library in Philadelphia researching the total of 68 men, 1 woman, who died while serving in the World Wars. And it was a fascinating, rewarding project. And I know there were some families that are still around who were related to the people in the books. And I think people appreciated remembering those people who are remembered on Lansdowne's monuments.
Has all of your work been in print? Have you done any film, video, documentaries?
I did an hour documentary called There Is a Town, Lansdowne. And because what would happen is when I would do these books and do projects in town, I would come home, and this was great. I would come home, my front porch, there's a box of pictures and movies. So I started thinking about how do I share these films with people? So I did did the documentary and did the books, and it's really been a fulfilling experience.
What's your next project?
I'm looking for my next project. I don't know if the next project's going to be retirement, possibly.
No.
Possibly, or I'm looking for something else that'll maybe match or exceed the Lansdowne Theater, which is going to be tough.
Well, what's on your bucket list?
Bucket list is to finally, after working on this project for 15 years and asking my wife to support me. She is my bucket list at this point. I want to. I have a wonderful wife and a wonderful daughter, and this project has taken me away from them a lot. So I want to start to refocusing on both.
Matt, it's been a pleasure.
Great. Thank you, Rick.
Good luck. And thank you for adding value to your community.
Thank you. It's been my honor.
This is 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves